All right. This is the board work portion of day 2, module 1. And so I'm going to work through some financial ratios that we might use to help us gauge our financial health. And so the first of which is called the solvency ratio. And so this is going to be our total net worth divided by our total assets. Okay, let me make sure that is legible. Okay, you guys got it. And so if we look at the handout and the Hawley family data that we have, all this information can be found on the balance sheet. And we can easily see that the Hawleys have a total net worth of $87,465 and total assets of $261,485. These two things together give us 0.3345, and so we talk about the solvency ratio as being 33.45%. Now, what does that tell us exactly? What does that give us? Well, the solvency ratio tells us how much cushion we have in our assets. And the way to think about this is if we have 33.45% of our total assets, of net worth to our total assets, that means that liabilities are 67% of our total assets. Liquidity ratio. Liquidity ratio. And so this one is going to be our total liquid, and sometimes you'll hear this called current assets. And we're going to divide that by total current debt. So total liquid assets, again, we can find that on the balance sheet, on the personal balance sheet in the liquid assets section. Total current debt, however, takes a little bit of work. So total current debt is current liabilities, right? But we also have to consider the other loan payments that we have due within the year, because the balance sheet only shows us balances. They don't show us bills that are coming within the year. Remember, it's a snapshot in time. So we want to capture our current liabilities as well as the total payments that we made to loans, because the idea is these are due today. Then we have loan payments in the year. So here's what's due today. Here's all the loan payments we have coming up in the year. How much of those can we pay for out of just our current assets before having to worry about finding another job or liquidating any of our savings? And so this takes a little bit of work to solve. And so let me see how much room I have on the board here. Okay, good. So over here, I'm going to put our current assets, $2,285. You have this ratio written down, so I'm going to go ahead and erase it. And we are going to find out total current debt. So, total current debt. We need current liabilities. So we can find that on the balance sheet at 1070. So where would we go to find all of the other loan payments that we have to make within a year? Well, we look at our income and expense worksheet, and that is going to show us for the whole year how much we spent last year on loans. So we get an idea of our total burden there. And so if you look with me on the expense worksheet, doesn't really do a whole lot of good to hold it up here, but on the expense portion on the bottom, let's find the loans. The very first thing we see is a mortgage, and that is $11,820. Keep going down the list, and we find an auto loan, and within that year, we spent $2,520 on the auto loan. Keep going down the list, and we will find furniture loan. I wouldn't recommend it. I would probably save to buy furniture, but nonetheless, $800 here. As we go a little further, we find some other loans down in the other items. One being student loans of $900, and a loan from the parents, and that was $600. Okay, so all of these things together, loans from the income and expense worksheet, looking back at the year, and then realizing that we are missing some pieces that are in current liabilities that we haven't paid yet that are not going to be in the income and expense worksheet. So recall that this is looking back on the year all the way up to December 31st. The balance sheet is on December 31st. And so the current liabilities that are on the balance sheet haven't been paid yet and aren't going to show up as expenses on the income and expense yet. So we got to incorporate both of these. Then it's really easy just to add these up and take the ratio. So if we add all of the total current debts up, we get $17,710. The current asset of $2,285 goes on top. Let me do this differently. 17,710. We're doing our liquidity ratio, and we get a 12.9%. So how do we interpret that thing? Well, this is our liquid assets in our account, and these are all the liabilities we would have in a year. And so what this tells us is the percent of the year we can cover liabilities without new sources of income. And so new sources of income being either a new job or liquidating some of our savings. And so what does this mean, 12.9%? All we need to do is take 0.129 times the 52 weeks that are in a year, and we see this is about times the 12 months in a year, and we see this is about 1.5 months. Okay, so they can cover their liabilities, their loan payments, right? Those are the people that actually have a legal claim to their assets, so they can cover their car payment, their mortgage, etc., for 1.5 months without having to find any other income sources. This ratio is important to telling us how safe we are if we were to lose our job. Because if we lose our primary source of income, we want to know how long we can still pay the bills before we have to get back to work or start liquidating other assets. Okay, that's liquidity ratio. The last ratio is one that lenders will look at when they're trying to decide whether or not to give you a loan. And this is called the debt service ratio. Debt service ratio is going to add up the total loan payments for a month. So monthly loan payments, and we're going to divide this by monthly gross income. So what is this ratio doing? Your monthly gross income goes to many things. A lot of people get confused about why we would think about the percent of your gross income that goes to loan payments versus looking at after tax. But the idea here is that tax is one thing that your income goes to. It's an expense, just like any other expense. So we're going to keep taxes out of this and use the gross income to see what percent of that is allocated to loan payments in the month. And so we can use a lot of the information we just had from the liquidity ratio because we already computed the loan payments in the year off of the income and expense worksheet. And so those were, I'm not going to write them all again, but 11,820, that was the mortgage. 2,520, that was the auto loan. 800 was the furniture loan, I believe. Yes, 900 was the student loan, and 600, that was the personal loan to the parents. Whoops, this is the numerator. We take all of these and we divide by 12 because we want to know what our monthly loan payments are. Then we need to go to the income and expense worksheet, and we see that over the year, the Hollies made $86,715 in total income. We divide that by 12 to figure out monthly income. By now you could see that the 12s would cancel anyway. And so we get, I've run out of room here. I'll draw this back up here. We get 19.2%. So 19.2% of their monthly income goes right back out to debt. We'll interpret this in the slideshow as well. So those are the three ratios we're going to look at computing to give us a better idea of our financial health. If you resume the lecture now, we will put them in context to talk about whether the ratios that we computed are good or bad.